wcegtalkradio.com. Click live stream tab or watch us live on your smart TV. YouTube, WCEG Network. I am Damita Chatman, your host of Take a Stand for the next hour. We're the worldwide community empowerment group. We speak life in the community. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter and on Instagram at WCEG Talk Radio at WCEG Network. Last but least, this is the disclaimer. The topics and opinions are the show of the host and the guest and not WCEG Network. Thank you for continued support. I want to thank Council President of Atlanta City Council for coming today. Um, we're going to get to hear a little about Felicia uh, more.
Hey, thank you so
So
much
thank
for.
you. So give us a little glimpse into the Felicia Moore.
Well, let me give you a little bit of my story. I was born and raised in Indianapolis, Indiana, and I came through Atlanta when I was a senior in high school. And a group of us snuck around. Well, they were taking us on a tour of historically Black colleges and universities. Of course, we came to Atlanta, and one night a group of us snuck away from our chaperones and we got in a cab and we drove down on Campbellton Road to Cisco's nightclub. I don't know how we got in, but we got in. And I thought I had died and woke up in Black Hollywood. The people looked so beautiful. They were professional. I was just blown away. That was it. I said, one of these days, I'm going to make it back to the city of Atlanta. Well, I did go to an HBCU, Central State University in Wilberforce, Ohio. And after I graduated, I came home, worked for a little while, and still had Atlanta on my mind. You know, I kept up with it with Maynard being elected. And unfortunately, the missing and murdered children saga. I mean, I always kept my eye on Atlanta. So I had a chance to come for an extended visit. And I took that visit. I came. And when I got here, I said, I'm going to stay. And so that's kind of how I stayed. I stayed in an apartment in Home Park for a while, and then I moved into my own home in 91 in Riverside Community, which is off of Bolton Road. It is in Northwest Atlanta. And the first day I was moving in with my parents, somebody drove up and said, hey, we're about to have a meeting. We're starting a neighborhood association. And my dad and mom were unpacking the U-Haul. And they said, well, you go with him. We'll finish unpacking. I went with him. And when I came back home, I was the president of the neighborhood association. And that's, it took off from there. I fought a lot of different issues, created youth programs, crime watch, the normal things you do in the neighborhood. I ended up chairing my neighborhood planning unit here. Then I had an opportunity to work for a city council member at City Hall. And that's kind of where I saw where city government worked and didn't work, and particularly on behalf of getting things done in the community. So with the urging of the community, I did run and I won, and I served Northwest Atlanta for 5 terms. It's the only district in the city that actually goes from Buckhead to Donald Lee Hollowell Parkway, which people call Bankhead, and beyond. And we have a large Latino population here as well in the district. And so, you know, I've had an opportunity to serve people with different income brackets, socioeconomic status, ethnicity, race. And so I think that uniquely suits me to do what I didn't know I was going to do at first. But the first thing I did after all of that was become president of City Council, which I am now. And now I'm running to be a candidate for mayor.
Okay, good. Well, I'm gonna tell you, I have sisters. I have a sister. I have two nieces, I think, and 2 nephews. They graduated from Wilberforce, and so they're staunch Central State University. So again, thank you for representing Ohio, which I'm from Ohio, a little town called Lima. You probably heard of it.
I've heard of it.
So let me ask you, I hear people talking about President Moore about Maynard Jackson and so working along with Maynard Jackson, how do you feel if Maynard Jackson was here today? How do you feel he would feel about the politics now that's going on?
You mean just nationally and across, yeah, or just
Just I
locally?
just say let's do locally. How would you feel about? How would he feel about just
Well, I
locally?
think he would certainly want us to do better. And I remember the last thing I heard from him, and that was when he came through City Hall. We were all so excited. He was walking the halls of City Council, and he came in my office and we talked. And the last thing I remember he said is, we need leadership. The city, needs leadership. And so I hope in that vein that I will not only hope, but will actually execute some leadership in the city.
Okay. Now I know Atlanta gonna play a big part in this election, even on the federal. So how do you feel about them gerrymandering the different locations, and what do you see it looking like in the next 4 years in Atlanta?
Well, let me back up a little bit and just remind the public this is the very reason why, for I don't know how long during the pandemic, particularly when I was doing things virtually, that I was really encouraging and urging people to fill out the census. So let's
Right.
start with, how do we get to the potential of gerrymandering, and that starts with people's citizens' participation in filling out that census, because those numbers matter, and they matter in terms of the representation and how they can draw these maps that could diffuse your ability to have your voice be heard. And so I always say with the first, well, what could I have done first? And then we talk about what somebody didn't do second or may do to us second. And the first thing, I'm going to say it again, in 10 years, when the next poll, the next census comes out, fill out the census and encourage everybody you can. So then now we have this information from the census, so we're able now to start looking at districts. It happens for the federal seats, it happens for the state seats, and it even happens for the local seats. And then the school board seats, because the school board seats are based on the city seats. And so there will be a redistricting process at the city level, the county level, as well as the state and federal level. And if we as citizens kind of sleep on it, now the ingredients are already decided, because
Yep.
we had a census and you had a chance to say that you were here. Now we have to be very vigilant and watch and see what happens.
And so let me actually even talk about the census. I know some people was confused. I heard people say, well, I'm not going to do the census because they're trying to track me. And what I used to say is that really going to determine on your schools, like you say, your schools. If you're not counted, then you're left out. So right now, it's a big thing about a school that's finna be closed down. And if we did not fill that census out, that determines on the people in that school. So that's maybe the reason why that school is going to be closed down. So if you didn't do it this go round, we got another 10 years to wait to do it over. And so I think people fell asleep, because the census was out there, the people was out there advocating for it. But I think we fell asleep because sometimes, and I'm just saying as the Black race, sometimes I think we get caught up into different issues, our personal feelings, and we miss the mark. And I think this census is going to let us know whether we missed the mark or not, because we also are going to be dealing with two congressional seats, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Uh, this is going to, I'm use South Fulton, for example. It's going to also determine the redistricting of those council seats.
Mm-hmm.
on the state level, the local level. So I'm praying that we didn't miss the mark, but I think we probably missed the mark because so many did not do it. And you can't cry over spilled milk now. We just have to learn from the mistakes. I see. So just say if they do, if the change come when the numbers come out, how do you feel it's going to affect Atlanta?
Well, I haven't had an opportunity to view the preliminary numbers, but in terms of the city of Atlanta and the council districts, I know over the time I've been on council, I've gone through two of these processes, and this is, going to be the third. And typically the trend that I've seen in terms of districts on the south side, they continue to be moving north or northeast, because that's where our population is increasing, in the northern part of our city, as well as the eastern part of our city, and now closer in to Northwest Atlanta on Hollowell Parkway. And we're going to start to see more density, more people. And so that would give you an indication that those districts, when we draw them, if there's a loss of population or not enough of an increase based on some of the other districts, we may have to take some of those other districts to lower their numbers so you have an equal number, or as close to equal as you can, for all of the districts, so that a council member represents the same amount of people. Right now, we're like about 57,000 people, because some of them are voting age and non-voting age people in the District 9 or in individual districts, plus or minus 5%.
Okay. I'm going, you can answer this question. You don't have to answer, but I'm always going to try to keep it honest. When I first moved down here and we were looking, they always labeled Atlanta the chocolate city. So tell me, do you see a change coming?
Well, I think we've already seen the change. We know that, and just in the conversation we were having about the population and the trends that we're seeing, we are definitely beginning to be more diverse. And the Black population is not the predominant number of people in the city. We know many of our neighborhoods that are close in and around that traditionally have been Black neighborhoods are now neighborhoods that people would call gentrification or regentrification in those particular areas. The housing market right now is extremely interesting in the fact that the supply is very low. And so then that means you've got to meet that demand in some way. And I'm seeing that play out across the city as more and more neighborhoods are getting more and more diverse, with more and more people. So yeah, I think we're going to see some interesting things from the census as well.
Okay. I've heard people say how Atlanta, some of the older neighborhoods where people have been there 40 and 50 years, and now they're being priced out. What are you going to do to kind of help, I'm going to say, help my grandma stay down there in the Atlanta area? What you going to do about that?
Well, let me start with, I love these opportunities because I want to do just a bit of education. And the way I look at it, if I used an analogy, is the housing market, or the market for housing, is like the weather. So, we don't individually nor as a city have control over what the market is, because it's like the weather. If it's going to rain, it's going to rain. If it's going to snow, it's going to snow. Whatever it's going to do, it's going to do. The question then becomes, what do you do to mitigate or prepare for that? And so my answer to that is, first of all, we need to have control over some aspect of it. And to have that control, we have to use the resources we have, that being city property, that being looking to do some creative things that I have ideas for with the properties in the Land Bank Authority. But first and foremost it's dealing with the Atlanta Housing Authority and getting them more productive to get these properties built that are affordable for people, because that is the entity that really is to look at those people that are 50% and below area median income. And so, I have some radical thoughts about how to get that going and get that moving. And then, so again, the other thing is, I said, it's like the weather, so you can either mitigate or prepare for it. And on both of those ends, I want to see us, as you see, educate the public about what's going on in the market, and particularly in our Black communities where many of our citizens are older, encouraging them to make sure that they're getting their wills, so that you have that, that you have some thought of who's going to take care of that property, that you don't fall prey to all of these phone calls and letters and everything that you're getting. So there are many ways that we can help mitigate that. And then finally, I believe that if we stabilize, particularly our neighborhoods that have some neglect or in trouble, if we can stabilize those through cleaning it up and code enforcement and that kind of thing, we can allow people to stay in their properties longer, as long as they don't fall prey to an investor, et cetera, and to be able to maybe stretch out the time frame of that affordability that they currently have, because we do have some neighborhoods like that. They're changing quickly, but we do have that.
Okay. Now, I moved down in 2005, and we come from California. And I was surprised when I come here how over the years Atlanta has changed. And if you've been out in California, and I'm quite sure you have, going down to the Los Angeles area where you call Skid Row, and I never would have dreamed that I would see human beings laying under the bridges here, that they didn't just made tent cities. And if we don't get a handle on that, you're going to have another Skid Row. So what are your thought process on that?
And the same as yours. So when I became president of the city council, I'm very involved in let me start with, I'm very involved with the National League of Cities. The National League of Cities is an organization, all cities, towns, and villages across the country. And we come together, we have a conference, and we talk about different issues. And because I've been in the leadership of the organization, on the board, and now on the board of advisors, we talk about what are the emerging issues in your city. And I talked with Joe Buscaino, who I think was first vice president at the time. Anyway, he talked a lot about the homeless issue and what was going on in the city. So I'm Googling it and I'm looking at the pictures, because I've been to LA, and I'm just like you, blown away. And so this is before I got on council as president. When I got on council as president, I started trying to sound the alarm, trying to understand, getting on conference calls, listening in, trying to understand a whole lot more about what the city was actually doing, because I saw this coming. What I didn't see coming in before that was going to be COVID. And so I believe after this pandemic, we're going to start to see, I'm not going to say we're not already starting to see it, but I do think the level by which we see in LA, Seattle, Portland, San Francisco, some of those Western cities, we have yet to see it, but we can be well on our way.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
so I was, kind of sounding an alarm on how we can prepare for it.
Okay. Have you guys thought about it? I know as your city council, and I've come down and spoke, before you guys. Have you guys thought? I know you shut down one of the homeless shelters down there, and that fell under, I think, the former mayor of Kasim Reed. Have you guys thought about opening up a shelter for the men and for the women, because 2 years from now, you're gonna have a serious problem. Now you see ladies out there, you see men, you see kids out there. What kind of program or building, because there's a lot of buildings down there in Atlanta, is just putting the money into those buildings or getting an organization to run that? Have that conversation come up?
Okay, so I'm going to start at the beginning of what you said. 'Cause I
Okay.
just want to put on the record, the city of Atlanta did close down the Peachtree and Pine facility. There were issues, there were, of course, concerns by the residents and people in the area. However, it was the no barrier shelter and a primary place where 500 to 800 people would use, and particularly even more when you got to the winter months, etc. I voted no to close it down, not because I didn't think that, they couldn't have worked with them or etc. But I said, let's put them out of business, not shut them down. And what I mean by that is give me the plan that shows me how we're going to find 800 no barrier beds somewhere, and then I'll vote for it. Well, the plan of how we were going to deal with the residents in that shelter never came about. Some of them were sheltered at other facilities, and we closed it down. Now let's go to what do we need? Yeah, we need a place where those who are mentally impaired can
Mm-hmm.
go.
Mm-hmm.
We need somewhere where women can go, with women with children, you know, single men, people who don't want to go inside at all. Uh, you know, I mean, we need a various number of these facilities.
Absolutely.
Okay, so now we agree on that. You tell me where in the city we can build them.
Yeah.
And that becomes another issue because we, as people who are neighborhood organization leaders and residents, we are very protective of our communities and our neighborhoods, and we tend to immediately go to the negative and say, no, we don't want that facility in our neighborhood. So if we're going to solve the problem, it's going to be a comprehensive approach because everybody's going to have to buy into it.
I totally agree. I have a question.
Sure.
It says, and let me see, it says, why does it take two demolitions by belated properties, code enforcement as cases stemming back 3 administrations, and the properties are still like it is? Tell me, why is it taking so long?
Good question. I dealt with this 4 years before I even got elected with city council because code enforcement was the number one problem in our community, and then getting compliance or demolition, et cetera, on them is another situation. So I will just say that there are other models about how we adjudicate these. How do we make a decision on whether this property should go down, whether this person has a violation? And there may be two or three, I would say, different suggestions that I've heard that may actually work or speed up some of the cases. And I believe we need to look there, number one. Then number two, making sure that we make a commitment as a city in terms of all the long list of priorities of the city, how much of a priority is getting demolition things done, and making sure that we budget appropriately for that and be able to quickly move on getting contracts to get some of these torn down if they've already had the decision made. So for me, I believe it's just making sure we get some good people in place or working with the people who are in place to see what they need to get the processes moving.
Yeah, this is not, at you, but I've noticed how people they have a whole list of stuff what they're going to do when they're out there on the campaign trail, but once they get in office, it's a different ball game. You don't hear from them until the next election, or they carry out their own agenda. So tell me, what you gonna do about the people? since it's the people. So what are you gonna do if you get uh in that office?
Well, let me start at the end. I guess I'm going to start by saying that I'm going to do what I've been doing. You know, people can talk, and whatever you say, it's not what you say, it's what you do.
You better say
And
that.
so let's go to what you do. And if people have been attuned to city government and have followed my time in city government, they know that I come first as a neighborhood president, then an MPU chair over 7 neighborhoods, and then a council member and president of council, and now I want to run for mayor. But when you look at my track record over those years, I have been working very hard. I've put in the work, put in the time, and invested the energy and understanding what's working and what's not working in City Hall, and who to talk to, not necessarily the commissioners or whatever, but really talking to the employees who do the work every day. They have some great ideas. I've heard them. I just have not been in a position to advance some of those. And so I want to be in a position where you can do those things, but just that I think that your past history has a good indication on your future endeavors. And so if people look at my track record over time, they'll know that I'm not just saying that. And when it comes to promises, I'm going to be, and I have been and will be, very careful about what I say that I'm going to do or how I'm going to do it, because I want people not only to hear me say it and expect that that's something I'm going to do, but that is something that I know I can get done. I've been in city government before. You know, when I ran for city council, you want to solve, cure the cancer and save the world. But when you get there, you realize there are other things waiting on you that you may not have been aware of that you needed to attend to. And there may be some other impediments that keep you from doing it. So I'm very, very careful about that. But one thing I can promise, without any hesitation at all, is that I will operate in transparency, ethics, and accountability to the citizens.
I like that. Let's talk about something else that's been in the news lately, and you can. I'm not gonna get you in any trouble. We're gonna start off with the water boys.
Okay.
Um, I know some of the young men is out there probably trying to help mama pay the bills. You got some out there that's out there on their own. What plan or how can you help solve that issue?
Okay, so that was a long issue. So let me start with a little history. When I was council member for District 9, I think the water boys have been out there for a long time, probably 10 years or so.
Wow.
Because I remember, a couple of times I would go up to them and say, hey, you got to clean up your litter, whatever. But for the most part, there was no issue. There were no problems. I believe after the COVID and we closed our recreation centers because of, the distancing requirements and all of that. And we didn't really have a summer jobs program for kids. We didn't have other options for them available at that particular time. Then more kids joined in. And then it became out of hand. And and you've seen all of the different ways in which that has occurred. What I want to do are a few things. One, working with our public school system, and again, not saying, but actually doing, because all candidates say they're going to work with the school system, and then you read in the paper they're fighting. We may have to fight over something, but for the most part, I'm going with the knowledge branch and wanting to actually do something with them, because I believe that our kids need, in our more vulnerable communities, need adult supervision and their arms wrapped around these kids, closing that window of vulnerability for them to join a gang, have to go out and sell water, do whatever that they shouldn't be doing from 3:15 on when their parents probably aren't even home. So my vision would be to work with the public school system, and we'll start with one school to see how it works, and hopefully can spread it out as we go along. But match them with a city recreational facility. Let the kids go from the bus directly from school directly to the recreation center, have people there working with our new nonprofit organizations and others to come in, help them with their schoolwork, feed them a meal, let them play or whatever they want, activities they want to do, and then let them go home, which sort of lessens that window of vulnerability. For those kids that are old enough to work, we certainly have got to get the youth program started, and I'm happy to see the mayor has started trying to reach out to our corporate people. But I want to make sure we're focusing on first and foremost, and I will have to figure out how to fund it, so I'm going to put that out there, is a way to have that job readiness program so that we can pay youth and even adults for that matter to make sure that they're job ready, that they understand what it means to have a job, being on time, those kind of how you dress, how you interact, what you shouldn't do, so that when we do send people to our corporate partners, our businesses, our small businesses, they at least have some knowledge of how to operate, so they'll be more successful in those jobs. I also want to work with those who have been incarcerated to have a second chance program. We can't not let people be forgiven for the crimes that they've committed if they have served their time and their debt to and paid their debt to society. And so then it's up to us to try to help make sure that they can get a job. Because if they can't get a job, they're going right back out to the activity that they just probably went to jail for. So we need to work on those things too. And particularly with the youth, that's a youth component to what I'm talking about as well. So I believe we got to reach out to our youth and provide those opportunities for them. If we don't do that, we're going to continue to have water boys. And if we try to remove them, at least we know that we have provided the other options for them to take.
Absolutely. I know when I was a kid up in Ohio at 14, maybe 13, we had the program they call CETA. And so every year when we got out of school, maybe about 2 weeks after we got out of school, we looked forward to filling that application out to getting hired. And I remember my first job, I went out to Ohio Northern University. Have you guys partnered with the universities, or even not even just the universities, picking up the trash? Have you guys partnered with the police department, paying kids maybe minimum wages to go clean up the streets, something like that? It's a lot of things that we can do. It's just we got to get together on one accord to do it, I think. And have you guys tapped into? I know the celebrities. You see them out there on the front when they want to put something. Have you guys reached out to these celebrities? Even opening up a shelter for the women and the kids. Have you guys reached out to them?
Well, first of all, I'm not the mayor, so I'm not in that position necessarily to broker all of those things that you mentioned. I will say that most that you mentioned previously have been done before in some capacity in the city and just isn't happening now. And so that's why I'm running for mayor. I want to be in a position to be able to bring all of those resources together so that we can do some of those things or get them reactivated. Or, I mean, we could look at, day work for those people who are unsheltered. Sometimes it's not just the money that keeps them out, so we also have to look at the other programs like for drug and alcohol addiction and those kinds of things. But yes, all of those things have been looked at and can be looked at, and I'm looking forward to looking at them. I was one day thinking about all of the things that the city can or should be doing, and you would begin to say, okay, this could be a very heavy load. But very immediately I started smiling because I realized, Atlanta is a great city. and it's
Yes.
made up of great people, great businesses, great institutions. We have all we need to fix the city. We
Mhm.
just need a leader like how I would want to lead the city, and bringing all those resources together and seeing how we can help each other do the things that we know need to happen in our community, and making sure that people, one complaint I get is people say, well, I've approached the city before and I can't get an audience. We will give people audience and we will try to implement what we can. Now, we can't be there just to pay everybody to do everything. So we're
Mhm.
first going to look at those who can offer assistance to the city and not charge the city for it, so that we're fiscally responsible. But then we'll look at, grants or other mechanisms to help support some of our nonprofits so that they can help assist us with some of the needs of our citizens in the city.
Okay. Now let's go to the another hot topic that took happened during, I think, before COVID-19, was the Brooke shooting. How would you help the police officers? Because I know morale is probably low, it's probably pumping back up right now. But what can we do to help our police officers? Because let's admit, all the police is not bad.
Mhm.
We got some bad apples in everything, and one bad apple can tank the whole bunch. So what can we do to help that situation? We saw, and I think you were part of the speaking out when they were doing the marches, the Black Lives Matters. I think, I'm not for sure, but what can we do that we won't have another incident like we had during that time, shutting the freeways down? What kind of plan would you have put in place?
Oh, wow. So there's a lot that I want to do, because whether it happens, something happens with an officer and a citizen in Atlanta, or a person, because it could be a non-citizen, an incident that happens here in Atlanta, or whether it happens in another city or state, it can all impact that. And we're seeing that things that happen in other cities sparked protests across the country, and Atlanta, of course, is going to be in the mix. So what I want to do is be proactive on this, understanding that something will probably happen sometime, and get with those people who protests and activate demonstrations, and et cetera, and really have a frank discussion with them, because they as well have legitimate, in some instances, complaints about how they are treated in their demonstration from the police officers, and vice versa, because I think it goes both ways. I don't understand why it always has to end with a clash in the street. So I want to have those conversations as mayor directly with them. Secondly, I want to make sure that I am forthright with the public very early on, before anything ever happens, to say, if we have an officer involved incident with a resident or a person who is visiting our city that is shocking to people, these are the things that are going to happen, and I want to do this before it ever happens. This is when you're going to see the body cam video. This is when you're going to see the related to the officer, or whatever other information. This is the process. This is what happens after that, so that people understand what to expect. So then when it happens, I can quickly remind people. I, I said, these are the things that were going to happen, and I will be held accountable for making sure they get done.
Okay. We have a question from Facebook. And it says, we see a lot of empty buildings. Speak on the extensive rehab of existing unoccupied buildings versus buildings totally upgraded properties to accommodate all state of emergency homeless people.
So again, let me go to the end. The Because the buildings are vacant doesn't mean the city owns them. So people do have private property that is vacant, and they have their rights to their property. The city can't just Well, I guess we could through eminent domain, but we try to be a very, we should be, let me put that way, this way, very careful about using that power and authority to take somebody's property to make it one other thing. And even if we did it in identified building and decide to take it if they didn't want to sell it to us and make a shelter, what we talked about earlier comes into play, because then you need to and must get the input from the neighbors and the people who live around there as to how they feel about that particular facility. So those are some of the issues that surround that. If you had any other specific points you wanted me to make, please let them know, and you can ask me that question. But I think that that's the difficult part, is you've got to identify locations, which can be done, but we also have to have that hearing and the public and the input from them as to whether or not it would be there. That doesn't mean that we won't put it there, because even if they don't like it, but that is a process that I respect.
Okay, is it going to be some another question, or you guys going to look into affordable housing down there, developing affordable housing
Well, the
in
city
Atlanta?
has been developing or either requiring the development of affordable housing through several mechanisms. And we talked about this earlier, some of the plans that I have, because I believe they're low hanging fruit and can be done immediately. We don't have time to wait. We can't do everything at once, but we can do what we can control. Again, the market is the market, but what do we have control over? And we have control over properties that are city owned. We have control over, I was going to say, the properties that are city owned. We have some control over properties that are in the land bank authority. But again, the mayor has a lot of influence over the control of how we move forward with our housing authority. And I believe that that's one of the missing pieces that we need to get going.
Okay. Now, I hear a lot, and again, I'm not from here, so I hear a lot about the Fourth Ward, how it was back in the day. Right now, the Fourth Ward is changing.
It's
What?
changed.
Oh, okay, okay. You say it's changed. So you're looking at some of those minority businesses that's been there for years and years and years, and you say it's changed, and it's probably going to change anymore. What would you do if you can't become, how to help some of them business in that area to stay in the Fourth Ward? Isn't one of the
Well,
let me ask you a question. Again, I'm not familiar. Is the Morehouse and all them in the Fourth Ward?
no, not in the
Okay,
fourth ward.
okay,
They're
got you.
over closer to the West End area.
Okay, got you, got you,
Mhm.
got you.
So there have been new opportunities and thoughts to helping to enhance businesses. As a matter of fact, I had a conversation with a small business owner that was pretty much advocating, as mayor, you need to pay attention to providing capital for businesses. That this person believed was the number one impediments to businesses, particularly small businesses, being able to stay open and active, which would fall in the category, the type of businesses that you're talking about in the old Fourth Ward. And so whatever we can do, because there will be a lot of money coming through the city of Atlanta from the federal government. We got 88 million in CARES Act funding that we're spending now. We have the American Rescue Recovery Act money. I think that may be somewhere around 170, $180 million. So we have opportunities to be very strategic and very frugal. I'm very frugal about how we spend and use that money. And I can see a portion of that money being set aside to be able to allow small businesses to have access to money.
Okay, and let's talk about the West End right quick, since that's where the Black College is at. Will you guys be trying to partner with that area to help kind of spruce up and protect the students down there? And also, are there any future Beltline trails plans on the west side of downtown from West End to, I think, Southwest Atlanta to Hamilton Homes?
Well, I would say for the Beltline information, the more up-to-date information other than I can carry in my head would be best looking at the Atlanta Beltline Incorporated's website. And you can probably find all the plans and what's coming next. But they will be continuing to create the paths that they had already started and the connectivity. So at least there will be a green belt around the line. The main thing we need to focus on, of course, is the transit piece. So that's a whole nother conversation. In terms of cleanup around that area, I'm not going to just commit it to that area or the rest of it, but we certainly need to immediately work on our opportunities to clean up our city. After COVID, we just kind of let things go. And so now it's time to kind of spruce it up, not on in every neighborhood and in downtown, many of the areas. And so this may be opportunities for us to connect with either those that are unsheltered that may need work, those who are youth, et cetera, to create some synergy and be able to get some people on the street and help clean up. But before I leave that, I have to say, why are we having to clean up? We need to stop throwing it down.
Amen. Amen. I'm going to agree with you. I'm going to agree with you. Now, let me ask you a question. And this is what I saw the past administration do. And tell me, they always just think about themselves. And I'm going to say, I remember when the former mayor, he put lights from the starting going into his community, and it stopped right at his subdivision, which I thought wasn't tasteful at all. And I'm going to say, if you become the mayor, I hope you wouldn't do nothing like that. So just tell me, where do you stand on stuff like that? I know in this politic game, it ain't what you know, it's who you know, and sometimes it's all about the cronies. So would you put the cronies in your household aside and just think about the whole entire city?
Well, I've been in this for the service of the community. I define myself as a public servant in a political environment. So I clearly understand that I am in the soil of deep-seated politics. And so I am not saying I'm not aware of that, but I don't come to it as a politician or to be political. I come to it to serve the community and the people in the community. Again, look at my track record, and there's nothing there that would suggest that I would even think to do something like that. I want to make sure that our money is being spent effectively, and that we're getting the most for the very precious dollars that we have. And those dollars, as much as possible, are either doing one or two things. One, building up the foundation of our city so that we can provide the service that you want. And two, making sure that you get quality, exceptional service from the dollar you pay.
Okay. And I know the late Commissioner Darnell used to use a statement about from Bankhead to Buckhead, Buckhead to Bankhead. So if you get in this seat, tell me, are you gonna stop by Bankhead?
Well, actually, I live off of it. And it's Donald Lee Hollowell Parkway. I live in historic Collier Heights, and I've represented the area from Bankhead to Buckhead for over 20 years as a 5-term District 9 council member. I've been serving them forever. And I will be on Bankhead because I live here, and I will be in Buckhead, and I will be in East Atlanta, and I will be in Southwest Atlanta. I will be a mayor for the entire city.
Absolutely. And we got 10 minutes remaining. And another thing that I just saw in the news a couple of days ago, that Buckhead want to break away from Atlanta. Do you see that happening?
Well, anything is possible when citizens get together and petition their government to do whatever it is that they want them to do. And we'll be vigilant on it. My goal is to be a good mayor that delivers on what she says she's going to work on, make sure that we deal with our crime in the city, making our city and neighborhoods safer. That is one of the major arguments. And so if I can deliver the services, as I just said, um, for the money that people are paying, I believe that I can eliminate many of the arguments in which they would use to say why they're leaving the city or
Okay,
want to.
okay, okay. So if you become the mayor, are you, and I know you will, but I just want to hear from you. You're willing to work with the Fulton County Sheriff and all the partners for us to kind of get out of the negative and bring back the positive?
Well, I'm going to work with them. I'm going to work with all of our elected officials and make sure that I take time to do that. I've done that with other elected officials across the state, with the organizations I'm involved in and serve on, the Georgia Municipal Association, the Georgia Municipal Black Caucus, other organizations and groups within both of those, as well as I mentioned earlier, the National League of Cities, talking to our colleagues across the country, making sure that we have connections, not only on the federal level, the state level, and I certainly will be working with our county partners in both Fulton and DeKalb County.
Okay, great. All right, give us those election dates and when early voting start.
All right, so election is November 2nd, but early voting starts October the 12th. Another date just to keep in mind is the last week in August is when the candidates qualify. And that means you put your money down on the table, you fill out the requisite paperwork to make sure that your name is going to be on the ballot. So after that week is over, you will know who your candidates are going to be, definitely, and are going to be on the ballot, not only for mayor, but for president and council and all of the district and at-large council seats, and I believe a few school board seats as well.
Okay.
So those are the dates, and I certainly encourage people to get out and vote, and I encourage them to vote for me. And if you're unsure about doing that, please make sure you check out my website, FeliciaMooreForMayor.com. Look at that information, Google me, go to YouTube, visit me in Facebook, whatever you need to do to educate yourself. And I'm quite sure you will come out wanting to support and join Team Moore.
All right, all right. I'm going to say thank you for giving up a little your Saturday. It was hard trying to get you on your schedule because I know it was tight, but I appreciate you coming out and just giving a little history about you, what you gonna do, and the show ain't gonna endorse you. I just wait and watch you, and we'll go from there. But I think it's going to be very interesting these next couple months, and especially going to see who qualify.
Exactly.
So yeah, so uh,
Well, I will be
we'll,
there, and so that you know for sure.
oh yeah, so what day are you gonna once your qualifications? You gonna do a press conference, press release on your qualifications?
Oh, sure, sure. I will be there with bells on, and you'll know I'm going. And it's Felicia Moore for Mayor.com.
Okay.
Yeah, so thank you, Felicia Moore for Mayor.com. They want to make sure they get it right, and I want to make sure you get it right.
All right. Well, thank you. So let me in closing. Have you ever been up to that Central State homecoming? Do you go there? I know it's a big thing. My sister will make a big thing out of it in October.
Well, I went when I had an anniversary date, and I enjoyed it. I haven't been back, and then I don't know if they're having it this year due to COVID, but I will be back. I will be back. I try to go, like I was trying to do like every other year, but maybe after I'm mayor, if I can find the time, if I'll try to make it.
Okay. Well, again, thank you. I know you got a busy Saturday. You can get out there, get your little rest. But again, we want to thank you for coming on Take a Stand. We look forward to watching, see what come out of these elections. Again, I want to say thank you, President Felicia Moore.
And thank you for the opportunity to come and share with you. You ask great questions. You get straight to the point, and I appreciate your allowing my voice to be heard today.
Okay, thank you, and have a good day.
All right. Bye bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.